Part 1. The Observatory at Twilight. Welcome, dear traveler. Tonight, we journey together through time and space to a world both ancient and impossibly advanced. Let yourself settle deeply into comfort as we visit the great Mayan civilization at a moment when the stars themselves were about to whisper their greatest secret. Close your eyes if you wish, or let them rest gently as we begin. The year is lost to modern calendars, existing in a time when the Mayan people had perfected the art of reading the heavens. Their cities rose like mathematical poems from the jungle floor, each pyramid and plaza positioned with astronomical precision. But this is not merely a story of the past. It is a story of what might have been, of what perhaps truly was, hidden in the spaces between recorded history and cosmic mystery. Our story centers on Kinich, whose name means sun-faced in the ancient tongue. He was one of the greatest astronomers of his age, a keeper of the sacred calendar, a reader of celestial patterns. Each evening, as the sun painted the western sky in shades of amber and crimson, Kinich would climb the 120 steps of the great observatory pyramid. His sandaled feet knew each stone intimately, having made this journey thousands of times over the decades of his service. The observatory stood at the heart of the city of Uxmal, though in this timeline it bore a different name, Yaxkukemo, which means First Quetzal Macaw, named for the brilliant birds that nested in the surrounding jungle canopy. The city stretched out below in elegant symmetry, white limestone buildings catching the last golden rays of sunlight, reflecting them back to the heavens like an offering. Kinich was 53 years old, his face lined with wisdom and weather, his long hair streaked with silver that matched the stars he loved. He wore the traditional white cotton robes of the astronomical priests, embroidered at the hem with glyphs representing the planets and constellations. Around his neck hung a pendant of polished jade carved into the shape of the cosmos, a circle representing the infinite, crossed by 4 lines marking the cardinal directions. As he reached the top of the pyramid this particular evening, Kinich felt something unusual in the air. It was a sensation he couldn't quite name, a tingling along his skin, a slight humming that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. The jungle birds had fallen silent earlier than usual, and even the ever-present insects seemed to have paused their twilight chorus. He approached his instruments with practiced reverence. The observatory platform held several devices of incredible sophistication, polished obsidian mirrors arranged to track the movement of Venus, elaborate water clocks that measured time with extraordinary precision, and stone tables carved with mathematical calculations that mapped the movements of celestial bodies across centuries. But Kinich's most treasured instrument was the great crystal lens. It had been discovered by his grandfather buried deep within a cenote, the sacred wells that dotted the Yucatan landscape. The crystal was unlike anything found in nature, perfectly clear, absolutely uniform, and cut with such precision that it seemed to have been shaped by something beyond human capability. When Kinich looked through it at the night sky, the stars appeared not merely brighter but somehow closer, as if the crystal could fold the very fabric of space. Tonight, as the first stars began to emerge from the darkening blue of dusk, Kinich positioned himself at the crystal lens. He had been tracking an anomaly for the past 13 nights, a new light in the constellation they called the Celestial Canoe, the star's modern astronomers would know as Orion. The light had appeared suddenly, brighter than any star should be, and it seemed to be growing closer. As Kinich adjusted the lens and peered through it, his breath caught. The anomalous light had resolved into something extraordinary. It was not a star at all, but a structure, vast beyond comprehension, geometrically perfect, and definitely approaching their world. The structure appeared crystalline, catching and refracting starlight in ways that created rainbows in the darkness of space. It reminded Kinich of the sacred crystal lens itself, magnified 1,000,000 times. Around him, the plaza had grown even quieter. Kinich realized that others in the city had noticed the unusual stellar display. People were emerging from their homes, pointing upward, gathering in the ceremonial spaces. The light in the sky was now bright enough to be seen without instruments, a new jewel in the heavens that pulsed with soft, rhythmic luminescence. Kinich's heart raced, but not with fear. Throughout his life studying the cosmos, he had come to believe that humanity was not alone in the vast expanse of creation. The mathematical precision of the heavens, the elegant laws that govern celestial motion, suggested to him a universe designed for consciousness, for intelligence, for connection. And now, perhaps, that connection was about to be made manifest. He descended from the pyramid with measured steps, his mind already racing through the protocols. Such an event had been anticipated, prepared for, encoded in the most sacred texts kept by the priests. There were rituals, procedures, ways of welcoming visitors from the stars that had been passed down through generations, waiting for this very moment. Part 2: The Descent of Crystal Light. By the time Kinich reached the great plaza at the pyramid's base, a crowd had gathered. Hundreds of citizens stood with faces upturned, watching the slowly growing light in the sky. There was remarkably little fear among them. The Mayan people had long understood themselves as part of a cosmic order, children of the stars and the earth in equal measure. Their creation myths spoke of beings who came from the heavens bearing knowledge and wisdom. Perhaps those stories had not been mere mythology after all. Kinich made his way to the center of the plaza where the high priest, Lord Uxmal, already stood in full ceremonial regalia. The high priest was ancient, her age uncountable, her wisdom legendary throughout all the Mayan territories. She wore a headdress of brilliant quetzal feathers that rose 3 feet above her head, and her huipil was embroidered with threads of gold depicting the creation story. "You have seen it clearly, Kinich?" she asked without looking away from the sky, her voice surprisingly strong despite her advanced years. "I have, honored mother," Kinich replied, using the formal address. "It is a vessel of some kind, enormous, crystalline in structure. It approaches with purpose and intelligence." "Then the time has come," Uxmal said simply. "We must prepare the welcoming ceremony. Gather the council of astronomers, the singers, the mathematicians. Bring the ancient texts from the deepest chambers. We will need them all." Over the next 3 hours, as the crystalline vessel grew brighter and closer in the sky, the city transformed itself into a site of cosmic reception. The great plaza was carefully cleansed and prepared. Copal incense burned in hundreds of braziers, sending sweet smoke spiraling upward. Musicians took their positions with drums, flutes, and rasping instruments made from gourds. The mathematical priests created elaborate sand paintings depicting the cosmic order, each grain of colored sand placed with meditative precision. Kinich and his fellow astronomers positioned themselves at the cardinal directions around the plaza, each holding one of the sacred texts. These codices, folded books of figbark paper covered in glyphs, contained knowledge that had been preserved for thousands of years. As Kinich opened his assigned text, he marveled at glyphs he had never fully understood until this moment. They depicted beings descending from the stars, sharing knowledge with the Mayan people, teaching the secrets of mathematics and astronomy and agriculture. The illustration showed crystalline vessels in the sky, just like the one now approaching. Had his ancestors actually witnessed such events? Was this not a first contact but a return? As midnight approached, the crystalline vessel dominated the night sky, brighter than the full moon. Its pulsing light cast dancing shadows across the plaza, and now everyone could see its structure clearly, faceted like a vast jewel, rotating slowly, beautiful beyond description. Kinich noticed that its light didn't hurt to look at directly, unlike the sun. Instead, it seemed to soothe the eyes, to invite contemplation. Then, without any sound or disturbance of air, the vessel simply appeared above the plaza, hovering perhaps 200 feet above the ground. It was even more magnificent up close. The crystalline structure seemed to contain entire galaxies within it, swirling patterns of light and color that suggested depths beyond spatial dimension. The vessel was roughly circular, perhaps 300 feet in diameter, its faceted surfaces catching and transforming the light of the stars above. The crowd fell completely silent. Even the jungle creatures had ceased their nighttime calls. The world seemed to hold its breath. A beam of soft, golden light extended downward from the vessel's underside, touching the center of the plaza like a gentle finger. Within that beam, forms began to materialize, figures descending slowly, gracefully, arriving in the world of the Mayan people as easily as someone might step through a doorway. There were 7 of them, these visitors from beyond. They appeared humanoid in basic form, 2 arms, 2 legs, an upright posture, but there the similarity to humanity ended. Their bodies seemed to be composed of the same crystalline substance as their vessel, translucent and luminous, containing within themselves the same swirling depths of light and color. They stood perhaps 7 feet tall, elegant and slender. Where eyes might be on a human face, they had faceted clusters that caught light like diamonds. They wore no clothing, yet their forms suggested robes or garments made of flowing luminescence. As the visitors' feet touched the limestone surface of the plaza, they paused, seeming to orient themselves. Then, moving in perfect synchrony, they approached the center where Lord Uxmal stood waiting, Kinich and the other astronomers flanking her. The lead visitor stopped perhaps 10 feet away and performed a gesture that was unmistakably a bow of respect. The others followed suit. Then, something extraordinary happened. The lead visitor's form shimmered, and suddenly images appeared in the air around them, 3-dimensional representations of light showing star systems, mathematical equations, patterns that Kinich recognized as representations of dimensional space. But more than that, Kinich felt something in his mind. Not words exactly, but concepts, ideas, emotions flowing into his consciousness like water finding its level. Welcome. Gratitude. Recognition. Fellowship. Ancient connection. Return. The visitors were communicating directly with consciousness itself, bypassing the limitations of language. Lord Uxmal stepped forward, her aged body standing straight and strong. She raised her arms in the traditional gesture of welcome and began to speak in the classical high tongue, the most ancient and formal version of the Mayan language. But as she spoke, Kinich realized the visitors were not just hearing her words. They were understanding the meaning behind them, the cultural context, the emotional content, all transmitted through that same direct communion of consciousness. Starkin, Nine Chell intoned. We welcome you to our world as our ancestors welcomed your kind in ages past. We have remembered you in our stories, preserved your teachings in our most sacred texts. We have kept the knowledge alive, waiting for this return. We welcome you with open hearts and minds prepared to understand." The lead visitor responded, and now all present felt the communication washing through their awareness like a warm breeze. They introduced themselves as the crystalline chorus, travelers of the cosmic ocean, seekers of conscious connection, gardeners of knowledge across countless worlds. They had come to Earth many times across its long history, drawn by the emergence of consciousness, of intelligence, of beings capable of understanding their place in the greater cosmic story. Part 3: The Exchange of Knowing. The formal welcome ceremony continued for another hour, filled with ritual, music, and the sharing of symbolic gifts. The Mayan people offered jade, cacao, and beautifully worked feather art. The crystalline chorus offered something more abstract but infinitely valuable: pure knowledge, transmitted directly into the minds of those present, ready to be unpacked and understood over time. As dawn approached, Lord Uxmal invited the visitors to the great temple complex, where more intimate exchanges could take place. Kinich found himself walking beside one of the crystalline beings, who had indicated particular interest in the astronomical work. As they walked through the quiet pre-dawn streets, Kinich felt his initial nervousness giving way to a deep sense of connection. The being beside him communicated its name, or rather, the concept that served as its identifier. Kinich's mind translated it into something like, "Star song that crosses darkness," though he knew this was an imperfect rendering of something that existed beyond verbal language. In his thoughts, he shortened it to Sujal, a Mayan word meaning servant or helper, which seemed to capture the being's essence of service to greater cosmic purposes. They climbed the observatory pyramid together, Sujal moving with fluid grace that suggested its crystalline form was far lighter than it appeared. When they reached the top, the eastern horizon was just beginning to lighten with the promise of sunrise. Kinich showed Sujal the astronomical instruments, explaining their purpose and function. Through their mental communion, he felt Sujal's appreciation and admiration. These tools, while primitive compared to crystalline technology, represented something important: the human drive to understand, to measure, to know the cosmos through patient observation and mathematical reasoning. In turn, Sujal shared knowledge that made Kinich's mind reel with joy. The crystalline chorus had been traveling the galaxy for millions of years, and they had observed and catalogued countless star systems, planetary formations, and celestial phenomena. Sujal transmitted star maps directly into Kinich's consciousness, not just the positions of stars, but their compositions, ages, planetary systems, and the presence or absence of life. Kinich learned that life was far more common in the universe than he had dared hope. Intelligence arose frequently, though it took many forms. Some civilizations were based on carbon chemistry like humanity. Others were crystalline like the chorus. Still others existed as patterns of electromagnetic energy, or as collective consciousnesses of microbial networks, or in forms so alien that even the chorus struggled to fully comprehend them. But all conscious beings shared certain fundamental qualities, Sujal explained. The capacity for wonder, the drive to understand, the ability to recognize beauty, the potential for compassion. These were universal constants, as reliable as mathematics, as fundamental as the laws of physics. As the sun rose, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Kinich asked the question that had been burning in his mind since the visitors arrived. "Have you been here before?" Were you the ones our ancestors wrote about? Sujol's response was complex, layered with history and emotion. Yes and no. The crystalline chorus themselves had not visited Earth before, but other members of what they called the cosmic community had made contact with humanity many times throughout history. Different civilizations at different stages of development had reached out to humans at moments when such contact could be beneficial, sharing knowledge of agriculture, mathematics, astronomy, medicine. These earlier contacts had always been conducted with great care, never overwhelming human development, never imposing solutions, but rather offering seeds of knowledge that humans could grow in their own cultural soil. The goal was never to create dependency but to accelerate understanding, to help each civilization recognize its place in the greater cosmic story. The Mayan people, Sujol explained with evident admiration, had been exceptional students. They had taken the seeds of knowledge shared by earlier visitors and had grown them into something unique and beautiful. Their mathematical system, their astronomical observations, their calendar, these were human achievements, built on human genius, merely inspired and encouraged by cosmic contact. Kinich felt tears streaming down his face as he understood. His people's accomplishments were not diminished by this revelation but enhanced. They had been part of a cosmic conversation all along, contributors to a greater dialogue that spanned the stars. Why now? Kinich asked. Why have you returned at this moment? Sujol's response contained urgency beneath its calm surface. The crystalline chorus had come bearing both gift and warning. The gift was knowledge, a complete understanding of certain technologies that would be useful to humanity in the coming centuries. The warning was about something approaching from deep space, something that required immediate attention. Kinich felt a chill despite the growing warmth of the morning sun. What approaches? Sujol turned its faceted eyes toward the northwestern sky and transmitted a vision directly into Kinich's mind. He saw a massive asteroid, a mountain of rock and ice tumbling through the void, its trajectory bringing it inexorably toward Earth. The impact, if it occurred, would be catastrophic, a civilization-ending event that would plunge the world into darkness for years, triggering extinctions on a massive scale. But there was hope. The asteroid's approach had been detected early enough. The Mayan people, with the help and guidance of the crystalline chorus, could prevent the disaster. But doing so would require understanding and activating technology that already existed on Earth, hidden in plain sight, built by the Mayan ancestors working with earlier cosmic visitors. The pyramids, Kinich breathed, understanding flooding through him. They're not just temples and tombs. Sujol confirmed his realization. The pyramids were part of an ancient defensive network, a planetary protection system disguised as religious architecture. When properly activated, they could generate a field of energy capable of deflecting or disintegrating threats from space. The technology had been installed thousands of years ago, and then intentionally hidden, its true purpose encoded in myths and religious practices, waiting for a generation with both the wisdom to use it and the need to do so. That time had now arrived. Part 4. The Awakening of Ancient Purpose. Over the following days, Kinich and the other Mayan scholars worked closely with the crystalline chorus to understand the true nature of their architectural heritage. The revelation was staggering. Every major pyramid, every carefully positioned temple, every plaza and causeway in the Mayan world was part of a vast, interconnected system. The pyramids were not merely symbols pointing toward the heavens. They were actual energy resonators, capable of tapping into the Earth's own electromagnetic field and focusing it in precise ways. The stone itself had been specially prepared, its crystalline structure aligned to conduct energy with minimal loss. The mathematical precision of their positioning was not just for astronomical observation, but for creating a geometric network that could channel power across the entire planetary surface. Sujal explained that similar systems existed at other locations around the world, built by different cultures working with different cosmic visitors. The standing stones of Europe, the megalithic structures of Asia, the mysterious stone circles of Africa, all were part of the same protective network, though most had fallen into disrepair or been destroyed over the millennia. The Mayan pyramids were among the best preserved and most complete sections of the ancient system. The Council of Astronomers met with Lord Uxmal and the representatives of the crystalline chorus in the deepest chamber beneath the main temple of Uxmal. This chamber had been sealed for generations, opened only for the most sacred rituals. Its walls were covered in glyphs that now revealed their true meaning, not religious texts but technical manuals, instruction sets for activating and operating the planetary defense system. Kinich stood with his colleagues, studying the glyphs by the light of torches and the soft luminescence emanating from their crystalline visitors. The instructions were extraordinarily complex, requiring precise timing, specific harmonic frequencies, and the coordinated efforts of astronomical priests at multiple sites across the Mayan territory. "We will need to send word to all the major cities," said Kinich, his mind already working through the logistics. "Uxmal, Tikal, Palenque, Copan, Calakmul. Every site must participate. The activation must be synchronized to the moment of Venus's rising, exactly 27 days from now." "Can it be done?" asked Lord Uxmal, her ancient eyes sharp with concern. Kinich looked to Sujal, who transmitted reassurance and confidence. "It can be done. Our ancestors designed this system to be operated by human hands and human minds. Everything needed is already here. We need only remember and act." The word went out across the Mayan world with unprecedented speed. Runners carried the message along the white limestone roads called Sakbiab that connected the great cities. The communication was encoded in traditional language to prevent panic among the general population, but every astronomer priest understood the true urgency. The continuation of their civilization, indeed of all life on Earth, depended on their success. Kinich threw himself into the preparation with focused intensity. He studied the ancient glyphs until his eyes burned with fatigue, then studied more. He practiced the harmonic chants that would be needed to resonate with the pyramid's crystalline structure. He calculated and recalculated the timing, ensuring that every astronomical factor was accounted for. Sujal remained by his side throughout, offering guidance and answering questions. Through their growing mental connection, Kinich came to understand the crystalline chorus's philosophy more deeply. They were not saviors coming to rescue primitive humans. They were facilitators, teachers, guardians of a cosmic heritage that belonged to all conscious beings. They believed that every civilization must be the author of its own salvation, but that sharing knowledge and providing guidance was both a privilege and a responsibility for those who traveled the stars. "Why do you do this?" Kinich asked one evening as they stood atop the pyramid, watching the stars emerge. "You could have simply deflected the asteroid yourselves using your technology. Why involve us?" Sujal's response carried deep wisdom. "Because the doing matters as much as the outcome. If the crystalline chorus simply solved humanity's problems, humans would learn nothing, grow nothing, understand nothing. but by working together, by teaching and learning, by empowering humans to save themselves using technology their own ancestors had built, something infinitely more valuable was created: true partnership, earned competence, justified pride. Moreover, Sejal continued, this was how cosmic civilization advanced. Each new member brought unique perspectives, innovative solutions, cultural richness that benefited all. Humanity would not enter the cosmic community as supplicants or children but as equals who had demonstrated their capability and wisdom. As the days passed, reports arrived from the other cities. The astronomical priests at Tikal had successfully entered their sealed chambers and deciphered their instructions. The pyramids at Palenque were being prepared according to the ancient protocols. From Copan, from Calakmul, from Uxmal itself, the message was the same: we are ready, we understand, we will do our part. Kinich felt a swelling pride in his people. Across hundreds of miles, thousands of individuals were working in perfect coordination toward a common goal. Farmers left their fields to help clear plaza spaces. Artisans crafted the precise crystal focuses needed for the energy resonators. Musicians practiced the ancient harmonic sequences. Everyone had a role to play. On the 26th day, the final preparations were complete. Kinich walked through the city one last time before the ceremony, observing everything with fresh eyes. How different everything appeared now that he understood the deeper purpose. The pyramids were not monuments to dead kings but living machines, sleeping giants about to awaken. The plazas were not just gathering spaces but energy collection arrays. Every carved glyph, every positioned stone, every architectural detail served the greater system. That evening, as the sun set in brilliant crimson glory, Kinich climbed the observatory pyramid one final time before the activation. Tomorrow, Venus would rise at the precise moment needed. Tomorrow, they would activate the system. Tomorrow, they would save their world. He looked up at the stars, now joined by the luminous presence of the crystalline chorus's vessel, and felt a peace settling over him. Whatever happened, they had done their best. They had risen to meet the challenge. They had proven themselves worthy of the legacy their ancestors had left them. Part 5. The Convergence of Light and Stone. The dawn of the 27th day arrived with a stillness that seemed to envelop the entire world. Kinich had not slept, though he felt no fatigue. His body was sustained by purpose, his mind crystallized by focus. He had spent the night in meditation, preparing himself mentally and spiritually for what lay ahead. As the first gray light touched the eastern horizon, the city began to stir. This would be no ordinary dawn. Every citizen of Yaxkukemo had been briefed on their role, even if they did not understand the full cosmic significance of what was occurring. They knew only that a great ceremony was taking place, one that required the participation of all, and that their priest astronomers had assured them it was of vital importance. The great plaza filled with people as the sky gradually brightened. Musicians took their positions around the base of the central pyramid. Singers formed concentric circles, each group responsible for a different harmonic layer. The astronomical priests, including Kinich, positioned themselves at specific points that corresponded to celestial coordinates, each person becoming a living link in a chain of consciousness and intention that would span the entire network of pyramids. Lord Uxmal stood at the very center, ancient and powerful, a living embodiment of continuity between past and future. She wore ceremonial robes that had been worn by her predecessors for 1,000 years, each high priest adding their energy and intention to the fabric. In her hands she held the sacred focal, a crystal sphere that had been recovered from the deepest chamber, a device that would serve as the key to activating the entire system. The crystalline chorus had taken position above the plaza, their vessel hovering in perfect stillness. Sujal had explained that while the humans would do the actual work of activation, the chorus would serve as amplifiers and guides, helping to channel the energies properly and safely. They had done this before with other civilizations, facilitating the awakening of ancient protective systems on dozens of worlds. Kinich felt the weight of responsibility settle over him like a mantle. He held in his hands a replica of the codex that detailed the activation sequence, every glyph now burned into his memory. He knew that astronomical priests at every other site were holding identical texts, reading the same instructions, preparing to act in perfect synchrony. The sky continued to brighten. Golden light spread across the eastern horizon like honey flowing across a table. Venus would rise in exactly 16 minutes, according to Kinich's calculations. 16 minutes until the moment when the planetary alignment would be precisely correct, when the energy flows of Earth itself would be optimally positioned for what they needed to do. Kinich began the first harmonic sequence, his voice rising clear and strong in the pre-dawn air. Immediately, the other astronomers joined in, each contributing their part to a complex musical equation. The sounds they created were not random. Each tone corresponded to a specific frequency, each rhythm to a particular energy pattern. Together, they formed a sonic matrix that began to resonate with the crystalline structure of the pyramid itself. The singers in the plaza added their voices, layer upon layer of harmonics building on the foundation the astronomers had established. The sound grew and swelled, becoming something more than music. It was a force, a presence, a conscious intention made manifest through vibration. The musicians joined next, drums providing rhythmic structure, flutes adding high crystalline notes, shell trumpets contributing deep bass resonances. The sound filled the plaza, the city, the surrounding jungle. Birds fell silent, animals paused in their morning activities, even the wind seemed to still, as if the world itself was listening. Kinich felt the pyramid beginning to respond. Beneath his feet, he could sense a subtle vibration, a gathering of energy deep within the stone. The pyramid was awakening from its millennia-long slumber, ancient systems coming online, power beginning to flow through crystalline matrices embedded in limestone and mortar. 5 minutes until Venus rise. Around the Mayan world, at Tikal and Palenque and Copan and Calakmul and a dozen other sites, identical ceremonies were reaching the same crescendo. Thousands of voices singing in harmony. Hundreds of astronomers chanting precise frequencies. Tens of thousands of people lending their conscious intention to the great work. 3 minutes. The sky had become a canvas of gold and pink and violet. The eastern horizon blazed with light. 1 minute. Lord Uxmal raised the sacred focal above her head. The crystal sphere began to glow from within, pulsing in rhythm with the harmonic sequences. Kinich could see threads of light beginning to form, connecting the sphere to specific points on the pyramid, to the astronomical priests, to the singers, to the vessel of the crystalline chorus above. 30 seconds. The entire pyramid was humming now, a deep bass note that could be felt in bone and blood and breath. The stones seemed to have become translucent, revealing an inner structure of crystalline pathways that channeled energy in complex geometric patterns. 10 seconds. The harmonics reached a peak of intensity. Every voice, every instrument, every consciousness present aligned in perfect unity of purpose. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Venus rose. At that exact instant, Lord Nyan Chel brought the sacred focal down in a deliberate, practiced motion, touching its surface to a specific glyph carved into the plaza floor. The glyph that represented connection, integration, the bringing together of all things into unified purpose. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The pyramid erupted with light, not the harsh glare of fire, but a soft, pearlescent luminescence that seemed to shine from within the stone itself. The light rose from the pyramid's base to its apex, then shot skyward in a beam of pure radiant energy. Similar beams rose from pyramids across the Mayan world. Kinich could see them with his physical eyes, pillars of light stretching from horizon to horizon, connecting earth to sky. But he could also perceive them with the enhanced awareness that Sejal had helped him develop. He could see the beams as they truly were, channels of focused electromagnetic energy, guided by conscious intention, amplified by the crystalline matrix of the stone structures. The beams reached upward into the atmosphere, then beyond into space itself. As they extended, they began to curve, following lines of force determined by planetary magnetism and gravitational fields. The beams from different pyramids reached out toward each other, connecting, interweaving, forming a net of light that began to encompass the entire planet. Kinich watched in wonder as the network took shape. Each pyramid was a node, each beam a connection, the whole forming a structure of impossible beauty and mathematical perfection. It looked like a geometric flower had opened around the earth, petals of light shielding the planet beneath. The crystalline course's vessel pulsed in harmony with the network, adding its own energy to the matrix, helping to stabilize and strengthen the connections. Sejal transmitted a feeling of profound satisfaction and joy. It was working. The ancient system was performing exactly as designed. Part 6. The Shield of Stars. The network continued to grow and strengthen over the next hour, fed by the sustained harmonic sequences from the pyramids and the focused intention of thousands of participants. Kinich maintained his part of the chant even as his voice grew hoarse and his body trembled with fatigue. This was too important to falter now. Through his enhanced perception, Kinich could sense the asteroid that was the reason for all this effort. It was still far away, beyond the moon's orbit, but approaching with inexorable momentum. A mountain of rock and ice, tumbling through space, heading directly toward Earth. If it struck, the impact would release energy equivalent to billions of tons of explosives. The immediate devastation would be horrific, but the long-term effects would be worse. Dust and debris thrown into the atmosphere, blocking sunlight, plunging the world into winter for years. But the network was ready now. The shield of light that encompassed Earth was not merely decorative. It was a field of directed energy capable of altering the trajectory of matter passing through it, or in extreme cases, of disrupting the molecular bonds that held matter together. The crystalline chorus adjusted their contribution to the network, fine-tuning frequencies and power levels. Sejal had explained that the timing was critical. The asteroid had to be intercepted far enough from Earth that any debris created by its disruption would disperse harmlessly. But it also had to be done while the network was at peak strength, before the participating priests became too exhausted to maintain the necessary harmonics. The moment of interception arrived in the afternoon, with the sun high overhead. To most of the population, nothing visible changed. But the astronomical priests and the crystalline chorus perceived everything with perfect clarity. The asteroid entered the outer layers of the defensive field. Immediately, directed energy began to play across its surface, heating the ice, vaporizing rock, creating tremendous forces that pushed against its momentum. The asteroid began to slow, its trajectory bending slightly, curving away from the direct collision course. But this was not enough. The rock was massive, its momentum enormous. Slowing it and deflecting it might prevent direct impact, but it would still pass close enough to cause catastrophic tidal effects and atmospheric disruption. Lord Uxmal, guided by the chorus, adjusted the sacred focal, increasing the power flow through the network. The beams of light from the pyramids intensified, blazing brighter, channeling more energy into the defensive field. The network responded, focusing a concentrated beam of force directly at the asteroid's center of mass. Kinich felt the strain throughout the entire system. This level of power output was pushing the network to its designed limits. He could sense other priests at distant sites struggling to maintain their harmonics, could feel the pyramids themselves vibrating with the energy flowing through their ancient structures. The focus beam struck the asteroid like a hammer of light. The rock, already heated and weakened by the initial interaction with the field, could not withstand this concentrated assault. It began to fracture, massive cracks spreading across its surface. Then, in a moment of spectacular release, the asteroid simply came apart, breaking into hundreds of smaller pieces that scattered across a wide trajectory. Each fragment was now small enough that it would either burn up harmlessly in Earth's atmosphere or miss the planet entirely. The threat was neutralized. The world was saved. A cheer erupted from the plaza as people sensed that something significant had occurred. Even those who couldn't perceive the cosmic drama directly felt the moment of success through the sudden lightening of the atmosphere, the release of tension that had built throughout the day. Kinich allowed his chanting to fade, his voice finally falling silent after hours of continuous sound. Around him, other priests did the same. The harmonics decreased gradually, carefully, allowing the power flowing through the network to diminish safely rather than stopping abruptly. The beams of light from the pyramids began to fade, growing dimmer, until finally they winked out entirely. The network dissolved, its purpose fulfilled. The pyramids settled back into quiescence, once again appearing as nothing more than impressive stone monuments, their true nature hidden from casual observation. Kinich sank to his knees, overwhelmed by exhaustion and emotion. They had done it. Working together, combining ancient technology with human skill and determination, amplified by the wisdom and guidance of the crystalline chorus, they had accomplished something miraculous. Sajol appeared beside him, the crystalline being's form pulsing with warm, approving light. Kinich felt a wave of congratulation and respect flowing from his alien friend. Not just for the successful operation of the network, but for what it represented, humanity proving itself capable of accepting cosmic responsibility, of acting not just for their own immediate interests, but for the continuation of consciousness and life itself. Lord Uxmal approached, moving with surprising energy despite her age and the draining ceremony. She placed a hand on Kinich's shoulder, her touch conveying pride and gratitude. "You have served well, child of the stars," she said, using the formal title reserved for those who had participated in cosmic work. "As have all our people. Today we have honored the legacy of our ancestors and proven ourselves worthy of the future they prepared for us." Part 7. The Gift of Understanding. Over the days that followed, as the city recovered from the intensity of the ceremony and celebration filled the streets, Kinich spent long hours with Sujal and the other members of the crystalline chorus. The asteroid had been deflected, the immediate crisis resolved, but the visitors remained, and there was much yet to share and learn. In the great chamber beneath the temple, the chorus helped the Mayan scholars understand the full extent of what their ancestors had built. The pyramid network was not solely a defensive system. It was a multifunctional technology capable of many applications. It could be used for communication across vast distances, for healing, for weather modification, for enhancing agricultural yields, and even for facilitating states of consciousness that made contact with other dimensional realities easier. Your ancestors were given the seeds of knowledge, Sujal explained. But they grew those seeds into something beautiful and uniquely human. The pyramids incorporate mathematical principles that the chorus showed them, but the architectural forms, the artistic expressions, the integration with your culture and spiritual practices, these were human innovations. Kinich learned that the pyramid builders had worked with a different group of cosmic visitors, ones who had come to Earth 3,000 years ago. Those earlier visitors, like the crystalline chorus, had been members of what Sujal called the cosmic community, a loose association of space-faring civilizations committed to fostering the development of consciousness throughout the galaxy. The community operated on principles that Kinich found deeply resonant with Mayan philosophy. They believed in balance, in reciprocity, in the importance of earning wisdom through experience rather than simply receiving it. They helped, but never controlled. They taught, but never commanded. They offered possibilities, but each civilization had to choose its own path. Why do you not simply reveal yourselves to all of humanity? Kinich asked. Why maintain this secrecy, working only with small groups like us? Sujal's response was thoughtful and nuanced. Open contact with an entire civilization was extraordinarily delicate, requiring that the civilization as a whole be ready, not just technologically, but psychologically, culturally, spiritually. A civilization needed to have developed certain qualities: the ability to manage its own destructive capabilities without destroying itself, a sense of shared identity that transcended tribal divisions, an openness to recognizing intelligence in forms very different from itself. Humanity was not yet at that point of readiness as a whole, though certain subgroups, like the Mayan civilization, had developed the necessary maturity. Contact had to be managed carefully. Shared knowledge had to be filtered through cultural frameworks that could integrate it without being overwhelmed by it. But this is changing, Sujal added, and Kinich felt the being's anticipation of future possibilities. Humanity is approaching a threshold. In the coming centuries, you will develop technologies that will make it impossible to maintain the illusion of cosmic isolation. You will reach out into space yourselves. You will detect the presence of other intelligences. When that time comes, the cosmic community will be ready to welcome humanity openly as equal partners. The thought filled Kinich with a bittersweet mixture of joy and regret. Joy that such a future awaited his species. Regret that he would not live to see it himself. But then Sujal surprised him with another revelation. The knowledge we are sharing now will be preserved. The crystalline being communicated. Not just in your codices and your architectural encoding, but in the consciousness of your people. The work you have done, the contact you have made, the understanding you have gained, these will ripple forward through time, influencing your descendants in ways both obvious and subtle. You are planting seeds that will flower centuries hence. As if to demonstrate this principle, Sujal showed Kinich how to encode knowledge in multiple layers. The deepest chambers beneath the pyramids were being filled with crystal data storage devices, each one capable of holding vast amounts of information. These devices were designed to last for tens of thousands of years, waiting to be discovered by future generations who would have the technology to read them. But knowledge was also being encoded in the architecture itself, in mathematical ratios and geometric relationships that future scholars would eventually decode. And it was being woven into stories, myths, and cultural practices that would be passed down through oral tradition, preserving essential truths even if their cosmic context was forgotten. This is how cosmic knowledge propagates, Sujal explained. Not through dramatic revelations that might destabilize a culture, but through patience, through layers, through encoding truth in forms that each generation can understand according to their readiness. Kinich spent time with each member of the crystalline chorus, learning different aspects of cosmic knowledge. One taught him about the nature of consciousness itself, explaining how awareness arose from complex information processing but was also something more, a fundamental property of the universe itself, existing in different forms and at different scales throughout reality. Another shared knowledge of healing, showing how the body's energy systems could be influenced through precise application of frequency and intention. Kinich watched in wonder as the crystalline being healed an injured priest, his broken leg mending in minutes through the application of focused energy fields. A third member of the chorus was particularly interested in Mayan mathematics and spent long hours discussing numerical concepts with the scholars. The Mayan base 20 system, their concept of zero, their ability to calculate vast spans of time, the crystalline being expressed genuine admiration for these intellectual achievements. Mathematics, it explained, was a universal language, as true for the chorus as for humanity as for any conscious beings anywhere in the cosmos. As the days passed, Kinich came to understand that the gift the crystalline chorus was offering was not primarily technological. The real gift was perspective, the understanding that humanity was part of something larger, that consciousness was not an accident, but a fundamental feature of a universe designed for knowing itself. This perspective would change everything. It would influence how humans saw themselves, how they treated their world, how they approached the great questions of existence. Even if the specific details of the contact were forgotten or dismissed as myth in future centuries, this expanded worldview would persist, shaping human civilization in profound ways. Part 8: The Departure and the Dream. 2 weeks after the asteroid's deflection, the crystalline chorus announced that they would be departing. Their mission was complete, and they had other worlds to visit, other consciousnesses to connect with across the vast expanse of space. But this was not goodbye, they assured the Mayan people. It was rather a transition from direct contact to a more subtle form of connection. "We will always be aware of you," Sujal told Kinich during their final private conversation atop the observatory pyramid. "The cosmic community maintains a watchful presence throughout this sector of the galaxy. As your civilization develops, we will continue to observe, to gently guide when appropriate, to be ready to assist if you face challenges beyond your ability to handle alone." Kinich felt a profound sadness at the coming separation, but also a deep gratitude for everything he had learned and experienced. "Will we see you again?" he asked. "Perhaps," Sujal replied. "If you live long enough, if your civilization continues to advance, if circumstances align in the right ways, then yes, there may be another meeting. But even if not in this lifetime, the connection we have formed transcends physical presence. You understand now that you are part of a cosmic family. That understanding, that consciousness, is the real connection, and it can never be severed. The departure ceremony was held at dawn, mirroring the arrival. The entire city gathered to witness the crystalline chorus return to their vessel. There were no tears, only celebration and gratitude. The Mayan people understood that they were not being abandoned but rather entrusted with the knowledge and responsibility to continue their own development. Lord Uxmal gave a final blessing, calling upon the cosmos to guide the travelers safely to their next destination. The astronomical priests sang harmonics of farewell and safe journey. Musicians played songs of gratitude and hope. The 7 crystalline beings stood in the center of the plaza, their forms pulsing with gentle light. Then, just as they had arrived, they dissolved into beams of golden light that rose into their hovering vessel. The ship itself pulsed once, twice, 3 times, a final salutation. Then it simply vanished, transitioning into whatever mode of travel allowed it to cross the vast distances between stars. Kinich stood watching the empty sky long after others had returned to their daily activities. He felt changed in ways he was still processing. The universe had revealed itself to be far stranger and more wonderful than he had imagined. Life was not rare but common. Intelligence emerged wherever conditions permitted. Consciousness was woven into the very fabric of reality. And humanity, his people, the Mayan civilization, had proven themselves capable of participating in this greater cosmic story. They had used ancient knowledge to protect their world. They had worked in harmony with beings from the stars. They had demonstrated the qualities that would eventually allow humanity to take its place in the cosmic community. In the years that followed, Kinich devoted himself to preserving everything he had learned. He worked with other scholars to create detailed codices documenting the encounter, the activation of the defensive network, and the knowledge shared by the crystalline chorus. These texts were written in layers, some information encoded openly for immediate understanding, other knowledge hidden in symbolic language that would only become clear to future generations with sufficient advancement. He also trained younger astronomers, passing on not just technical skills but the cosmic perspective he had gained. He taught them to see the stars not as distant lights but as suns with their own worlds, many of those worlds harboring life and consciousness. He encouraged them to think of humanity not as isolated on a single world but as part of a galactic community of minds. Kinich lived to the age of 93, an extraordinary lifespan that he attributed partly to the healing knowledge the chorus had shared. In his final years, sitting atop the observatory pyramid he had climbed thousands of times, he would often gaze at the stars and feel Sujol's presence, a connection that transcended distance and time. When he died, it was peacefully, with his consciousness expanding into a greater awareness, touching briefly on the vast network of consciousness that spanned the galaxy. For just a moment before the final transition, he understood everything, the interconnection of all awareness, the purpose underlying the cosmos, the beauty of existence itself. His body was interred in the pyramid, and the younger scholars he had trained continued his work, preserving the knowledge, maintaining the understanding, waiting for the day when humanity as a whole would be ready to rejoin the cosmic conversation that their Mayan ancestors had briefly participated in. And now, dear listener, as our story draws to a close, let yourself sink deeper into rest. Feel the wonder of what you have experienced, this tale of ancient wisdom and cosmic connection. Let it remind you that you are part of something greater, that consciousness itself is a gift connecting all beings across vast spans of space and time. Imagine yourself like Kinich, standing atop that pyramid, looking at stars that are not just distant lights but homes to other minds, other dreamers, other seekers of truth. Feel the peace that comes from understanding your place in a universe designed for knowing and being known. Let the tension drain from your body as you release into sleep. Your breath is the rhythm of the cosmos itself, steady and eternal. Your mind holds the seeds of understanding that will flower in dreams and in waking alike. The pyramids still stand, holding their secrets, waiting for future generations to rediscover what was once known. The stars still shine with the light of ancient suns, some of them circled by worlds where consciousness looks up and wonders, just as we wonder looking out. You are part of that great story, that cosmic conversation. Rest now in that knowledge. Sleep peacefully, held in the awareness that you are known, you are valued, you are part of the eternal dance of consciousness exploring itself across the infinite expanse of reality. Let go now. Drift into dreams where stars speak in harmonics, where light bridges worlds, where understanding flows like water finding its level. Sleep deeply, safely, peacefully. The story continues in your rest, in your dreams, in the quiet spaces where consciousness meets cosmos.